Kalalau Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahak, Wadash, and double honors to the elders of GMS Aruwell, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Barakatah. Today's lesson, those answers are found in the Bible. And here we have an August 2nd, 2025, RT.com article that says, U.S. Vice President obsessed with UFOs. J.D. Vance has pledged to get to the bottom of the whole UFO thing that plagued the U.S. late last year. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has revealed he has been obsessed with UFOs and hopes to thoroughly investigate the phenomenon in the nearest future. Further reading says, Vance made the admission during an episode of the Ruthless podcast, which aired on Friday, where he proclaimed his fascination with the mysterious flying objects. He goes on to say, like, I'm obsessed with the whole UFO thing. What's actually going on? What were those videos all about? What's actually happening, he said. I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet. But we're only 6 months in. We've been very busy. And let me just say this. If the previous president and those in charge did not say what they were, let me also say this. When it came to the previous president and his staff, the same promises were made to tell the truth as to their true origin. So what makes you believe that this new president and his staff will make a difference? It's always been a cover-up based upon broken promises. That's how the story goes. They're not going to reveal the truth. And when it comes to these so-called UFOs, all that you seek is found upon biblical scripture. That's why today's lesson is those answers are found in the Bible. Now, according to the opening statement of J.D. Vance, he mentioned that these so-called UFOs plagued the U.S. late last year, and that's correct. These so-called UFOs shall be a plague, which also means a curse, according to its similar definition online. Now, when it comes to the online definition of plague, it's not only defined as a contagious bacterial disease, as you can see here, but it's also defined as anything that causes continual trouble or distress to. And when it comes to a similar definition, it also means a curse, just as you see here. Now, the definition of the word curse means a solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. And when it comes to these so-called UFOs, that is exactly what they shall do. They shall inflict harm and punishment. And they are supernatural. Supernatural, meaning of a manifestation or event attributed to some force beyond scientific understanding or the laws of nature. Right, and when it comes to these so-called UFOs, they do defy the laws of physics, the laws of gravity. Supernatural also means otherworldly, as you can see here. otherworldly, meaning relating to the spiritual world, as you can see here. And those so-called UFOs could disappear and reappear. They could travel at incredible speeds and come to a complete halt, to a complete stop in midair. They can travel to the depths of the ocean and shoot back up into space. They can do many things. And what you ignorantly call unidentified flying objects, the scriptures regard as clouds or chariots. But unto us they are known as the identified flying objects of the Lord, Yahweh wa Yahushai. The chariots of the Lord are living beings, and upon the second advent of the Lord, Yahushua HaMashiach, those living beings will be the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. With that being said, let's go over to the scripture of Zechariah 5:1. Zechariah 5:1. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. And the angel of the Lord showed unto Zechariah a so-called UFO. In today's society, you have fancy words to describe those spaceships. But during Zechariah's time, there was no fancy terminology to describe what he saw flying upon the skies. So he named it a flying roll. He named it according to what it resembled back in his day. Here we have the scripture of Zechariah 5:2. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. And back in those days, back in ancient times, they used to measure from the elbow to the finger. But the flying roll in which he saw measured 30 feet by 15 feet. A small ship compared to the tremendous mountain-sized fathership of the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. And since this earth does things contrary to the ways of the Lord, instead of naming it a fathership, they name it a mothership. But it's the fathership. Here we have Zechariah 5:3. Then said he unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off as on this side according to it, and everyone that sweareth shall be cut off as on that side according to it. Now the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth, that speaks of the Lord Yahweh wa Yahushai's chariots, those so-called UFOs. The one that has stolen lands and identities is Esau, Edom, which is the wicked according to the scripture of Malachi 1:4. And the chariots of the Lord are also known as clouds according to the scripture of Psalms 104 and verse 3. Let's go over to that scripture as well. Psalms 104 and verse 3. Who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariots, who walketh upon the wings of the wind. Chariot, according to the lexicon Strong's H7398 and H7392, who maketh the clouds a vehicle to ride on. Right, to ride upon. A so-called UFO. This speaks of the identified flying objects, those IFOs, of the Lord, Yahweh wa Yahushai. And according to Psalm 68 and 17, there are 20,000. And upon the second advent of the Lord, Yahushua HaMashiach, those clouds shall be in many places. Those chariots shall be full of wrath and storm. As a matter of fact, let's go over to that scripture, 2 Esdras 15 and 34. Here we have 2 Esdras 15 and 34. Behold, clouds from the east and from the north unto the south, and they are very horrible to look upon, full of wrath and storm. That's right. These clouds full of wrath and storm represents the chariots, aka those so-called UFOs of the Lord Yahweh wa Yahushai, that will bring that battle unto Babylon the Great, which is America, and upon the armies of the earth that shall come against him in that violence of the multitude. Wrath, meaning the extreme anger that the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai will bring by way of the missiles and by way of that chariot laser fire. This is the aspect of battle. Isaiah 66 and verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. Right. The second death is by way of fire, meaning that these so-called UFOs shall come in like a violent storm. Those chariots of the Lord Yahweh Yahushai will shoot forth laser beam fire upon the people and upon the infrastructure. That's why the scripture of 2 Esdras 13 and 31 says, and one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another. Right, one realm shall fight against another realm, meaning that the spiritual heavenly kingdom of the Lord will engage the earthly kingdom of Esau, Edom in war. That's the prophecy of the white horse and of the angelic armada that followed, according to Revelation 19 and 11 and verse 14. A huge fleet of spaceships shall follow the Lord. That movie War of the Worlds will become reality. And what the people do not seem to understand is that those movies are made thanks to biblical scripture. That's where they get their inspiration from, the Bible. And they make millions upon those movies. Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 16, for by fire and by his sword would the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, shall be many. There you have it. The slain of the Lord shall be many. The chariots of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, are for battle, but they shall also be for the deliverance of the elect of true Israel, according to the scripture of Isaiah 26 and 20. They shall enter into the private inner rooms of the chariots. Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 20. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment, until the indignation be overpassed. Right, indignation meaning that righteous anger of the Lord. The chambers are in reference to the Lord's chariots, which are also known as the identified flying objects of the Lord, Yahweh Yahushai, or as Israel's flying objects, either or. Indignation means that righteous anger of the Lord that he has toward two parts of Israel and upon these corrupt nations and their armies, as it says in Isaiah 34 and 2, but also anger for Esau, Edom. Indignation means that righteous anger of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, that he has toward two parts of Israel, unto Esau, Edom, and unto all these corrupt nations and their armies, as it says in Isaiah 34 and 2. That enormous cherubim or fathership is coming from the east and shall journey to the west in order to bring battle unto the armies of the earth. But at the same time they shall proceed to save the 144,000 and 1/3 elect out of harm's way. This is that aspect of salvation. But when it comes to the ultimate ark, because the ultimate ark has to be also spoken about, that ultimate ark in these end times will be that enormous spaceship of the Lord Yahweh Yahushai. The answers that many seek are found in the Bible. Those so-called UFOs that plagued the U.S. late last year are just a small taste of the Lord's spiritual power and of what's to come in full force in these end times. But with that being said, Kal Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahakudash, and double honors to the elders of GMS Ruel, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Barakatah.